In some places, I had to give something like a concert for an hour or hour and a half.
Oh my goodness.
Slowly I got into it. First, when we started from here, preparation here and the things would be so tiring, it would be hard for me to sing. But as we got into the tour, and every time I sang, yeah, I improved and I could have my everything. Yes. And in some places I was really very much admired, but in some places I was too tired, or what it is, I don't know. It's hard to say, you know. A singer is not always in the very best conditions every time. It depended on how tired I was. But after the Sanskrit chant, I somehow got into the mood. Now, when we went to Detroit, there also lots. Sri Aurobindo Center was not there.
Mm.
But you knew Frank and Cecilia Craig.
No, I didn't.
They were from Detroit, and they had become close friends of Prithvi Singh and then Madhav. They used to come in those days, a beautiful couple, and they had started with Kriya Yoga, Paramhams Yoganand's Self-Realization Fellowship, and then they had read some books of Sri Aurobindo and turned to Sri Aurobindo. So after that, they would come here, stay at Golconda, and then go home. So they were in Detroit, though by the time we went, they were not in a position to host us. We didn't ask them either, but a doctor friend, first they were host. First visit, they were our hosts, Frank and Cecilia Craig, who lived in Detroit. Cecilia showed me so many little things to make myself comfortable in America. In the detail, she showed me how to wash the clothes, of course, with washing machine, how to wring out the cloth from woolen clothes. Because here in India, they just do like that. No, that's not the way. She was very methodical. She did all that. Well, anyway, there was a large Indian community. And among the people who was very much drawn to Madhav was a woman doctor, Dr. Bhanu Shah, who afterwards became a hostess when in the other visits, because these people had grown very old. It would have been hard for us to host us. We stayed with her. She had a fine house there. But she also was a member of the SRF. And her guru was Paramhams Yoganand, but her immediate guide, because Paramhams Yoganand had left his body, her guide was one Mr. Oliver Black. It seems he was a millionaire, and one of the important disciples of Paramhams Yoganand, and he was called Acharya Oliver.
Oh.
He lived up north from Detroit. He had some property on the shores of one of the lakes, and he had a big bungalow there and grounds and all that, quite a large place. And it was his retreat center. He gave retreats from there. And he was Dr. Bhanu Shah's guide. And she was very keen that Madhav should meet him. That man was 80 years old at that time. Yes, 80 years old. Acharya, Oliver, they all took some Indian names there, but Oliver he kept to himself. He didn't take Indian names like Dayanand, Mother, Daya Mata. Daya Mata, who was Paramhams Yogananda's successor. Daya Mata, Gyan Mata, they were all those Matas. But the others were like Anands, Jnana Anand, this Anand, that Anand. He didn't take that, he kept his name Oliver. So we were driven up there. What a cold journey, because everything was cold. And his mansion on the shores of the lake, because the lakes were frozen, it was just as if we were in an ice box, He drove all the way, poor thing, because I had not learnt driving and Madhav didn't do any driving. So we stopped only once for some refreshments, and then we started early in the morning, and we traveled nearly 200 miles. On reaching there, of course, I was extremely tired, and naturally it was very hard on me, I was not a robust person. But when we reached, in spite of it, because some places were snow-bound, roads were very hard to drive on, so we arrived late for their meeting. They had a morning meeting, where devotional songs were sung and a little discourse was given and all that, some kind of a satsang.
Mm.
So we arrived there, but someone was waiting for us, and they immediately ushered into the assembly hall. But in the front row was sitting Acharya Oliver. He looked quite nice, though old. He looked very energetic, very dynamic. He had fiery eyes. So he sat there, and Mother was escorted to a place next to him, and I was shown a place a few rows behind. They made space for me to sit somewhere, and so I got sandwiched between the two, and I sat there. It was not our first trip, it was our second trip. First trip we were with Frank and Cecilia, they were our hosts.
Mm-hmm.
In our second trip almost, we were with Bhanusha. So at that time I had carried a little instrument which they were selling in Chennai, Madras at that time. It was just a wooden piece here and then 3 strings attached to it, which people carried wherever they went. They couldn't carry the big tanpuras.
Mm-hmm.
This could be put in a suitcase also and carried. So such a tiny one about this, just to give me this ro, you see. There were 3 strings. So I took, I had it in my hand in the car, because we didn't take all the luggage there to that place of retreat. So it was in the car, and then I had taken it in my hand, and as I went and sat there, I had no idea that I would have to sing. And I was thirsty and hungry. But we are used to all these things. By this time, I was used to waiting here, waiting there, and sometimes being snowbound and waiting in the zoo. So, not that I minded it, but I was quite relaxed watching other people read out some quotes from Paramahamsa Yogananda. Then they chanted. Some people chanted some Sanskrit and Bengali also.
Mm.
Then suddenly, a young man from there comes and nudges me here. Your turn is next. So I was so shocked. Nobody had told me that I would have to sing that. Evidently, they had heard something about me having sung here or there. Some things they must have heard of me.
And Madhav hadn't spoken yet.
No, all the devotional music was going on.
Mm-hmm.
His speech, no one's long speech was allowed there. In morning assembly, it is only remembering the divine and all that. Then people go for breakfast. It is pre-breakfast assembly. In the Delhi ashram, they do like that. They have the morning assembly. Tara does that sort of thing, because in the north they have this kind of thing. So they did it, and Bengalis also have it. Paramahamsa Yogananda was a Bengali, you see. So, and he used to sing himself, sing and chant and all that. So they were doing it, and I was quietly sitting, listening to their music. And suddenly I'm nudged, you have to. And I had that instrument in my hand. I was surprised, but no time to ask anybody anything. I knew nobody there. He makes space for me to pass through those rows of people, and I go, and I'm made to stand in the podium. I asked only for a glass of water. I thought, let me at least moisten my throat. So they brought a glass of water. I stood near the mic and had that little thing in my hand, an apology for an instrument. Started doing drung, 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 because somewhere I had to start. Then I thought I would sing Puja Lal's Namo Namaste Tribhuvana Bhagavan. In Rag Kedar it is. It's a very fine Rag Kedar. I had set it to tune here, and they had recorded it here. It is in the ashram music. So Puja Lal, whenever he wrote a Sanskrit song, he would give it to me and ask me to sing. Well, then I had to give my own tune, because who was the music composer? No one was there.
Yeah.
From Shirin, I had just learnt a few rags. Those rags I utilized. So I said, this is a hymn in Sanskrit, written by a member of our ashram, Puja Lal. And it says, I'll give the meaning in brief, I said, salutation today, O Lord Bhagavan and the Divine Being, salutation today, Lord of the three worlds, etc. And it has a beautiful meaning, of course. And the melody, the raga is such, from here it slowly rises up like that. It's a beautiful rag full of devotion. And there it goes and then comes, spans it here and slowly moves like that. And so, and the last, when I end, the last two phrases, Namo Namaste, Namo Namaste, I say many times and peter off, you see. And it dies down like that. And again, I could see that they were moved. And but I said nothing. People were hungry. I think they all got up, and everyone headed in the direction of the dining room. We were also escorted there. Naturally, Madhav was taken by the teacher and his immediate assistants and all that, and I went with the other devotees who were there, who belonged to that path, not known to me, but they were polite and they escorted me there. And as I was going through the corridors, I heard a high piping voice of a woman who had an imposing presence. I learnt later that she was the secretary and personal attendant of Acharya Oliver. And she was saying in a high thing, I said, no, she couldn't be just a secretary, because it was so spiritual. In a high voice she was saying, she couldn't be. I was told that it's the secretary, Mr. Pandit's secretary, who is singing that. And I said, no, she can't be just a secretary. But by that time I passed on, so I knew that I was being discussed. And later, one of his principal Indian disciples, one who was also around him, a disciple, he came and told me, you see, Acharya Oliver is very much impressed. Again and again he said, she's so spiritual, the music was so spiritual, yes. And he would like to hear her again. And can she sing tonight? In the evening we can have concerts. So can she give a concert to this evening? Well, I just told him, you see, but Madhav looked at me, and then I said to this man, you see, I'm not a professional. We were just singing before our guru and just in the spiritual way. I'm not a professional singer or anything like that. I just sing as a devotee. He said, even that is enough. So with that little instrument, I am shown before the there, of course, within the framework, I could give more examples, more samples up to the present day. It was about an hour or a little more. I began with the Sanskrit of the Veda, then I ended in the modern period with the Sanskrit of Puja Lal and Kapali Shastri. To show the unbroken unity from the earliest times to the present. The unbroken current that was going through, while at the same time in the Middle Ages, poet saints were born who wrote in the regional and the native languages of the people, and Saint Mirabai, Saint Tulsidas, Surdas, Sant Tukaram, and the Tamil saints, the Bengali saints. During the Middle Ages, for 2 or 3 centuries, all over India, there was a great movement of bhakti. devotion, and songs were written in all the various languages. Before that, all this writing was done only in Sanskrit. In the language of the people it was done. And to show the variety of it and also to show the unity of India, I chose a piece from every region of India and gave a sample. Like one of Guru Nanak's. Guru Nanak has written beautiful. Guru of the Sikhs. The Guru Nanak's song. Another from Bengal, like Kirtan style, or Shama Sangeet. Shama Sangeet is hymns to the Bengali songs to Kali. Very, very powerful. And then Baul Giti, the Bauls, the wandering minstrels. I didn't from different types, only one type I took because I have to represent the other regions also. From the Tamil region, I took a song from one of the Tamil saints. Woman saint was that Andal who has sung beautiful bhakti songs. Andal. And in the Sant Tukaram or Jnan Dev from the west coast in Maharashtra. And even a song in Gujarati song, devotional, according to the time.
Yes.
So, if the time was less, I gave fewer samples. If the time was more, I gave her. But the strangest thing was this, the theme of those songs, in whatever language, of the north or south or west or the east, was the same. The same expressions of devotion, the same expressions of imploring the divine to acquaintance, the same lamentations about the world being a miserable place, but only you can save us, help us to cross this ocean of samsara, that is the world. Same expressions in the different languages. It was extraordinary. Even as I prepared those things, I could see the unity of it in the diversity. And yet in the forms, there was such diversity. Even in Rabindra Sangeet, which was mystical, some had Western tunes and some had the Kirtan tunes, some had this thing, some had... And the meaning was simply beautiful. I chose only those which had an inner meaning. I was taught those songs by Gitika, an ashramite. It's a sad thing that she doesn't have many recordings. She was the daughter of a revolutionary, Nalini Kant Sen, and he and others used to wander through the villages of Bengal singing revolutionary songs. And when Calcutta All India Radio was started, he was also one of the people who directed and who participated in it. He had a very, very vibrant and strong voice because no loudspeakers in those days. He sang those revolutionary songs with fervor, but he has also written some songs on Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and which are simply wonderful, Dilip used to sing them. Yes. And simply wonderful of the various aspects of the Mother, various aspects of Sri Aurobindo. And those songs I had learnt here during my early days. I heard Dilip sing them, I heard Shahana sing them. I learnt from Shahana, learned from Shahanadi. Then from that Nalini Kansen, he started playing tabla for Dilip. His daughter Gitika, the word means, Gita means song, and Gitika is song like. That girl had such a musical voice and such a beautiful voice, so fresh and like a mountain brook, And that girl's voice I admired so much. She was senior to me. And I said, can you teach me a few of select songs of these Bengali poet saints? And she taught me. First she said, I'll test your Bengali pronunciation. She asked me to read the thing. Now I can imitate very well, so I had heard Bengalis speak that thing. So I would read them, then she said, yes, you can pass. And then she started teaching me all those select songs. Yes. She, of course, came down. My voice, natural pitch, was half a note lower than hers. Her pitch was half a note higher.
Oh.
Because she goes more soprano voice, you see.
Mhm.
Yes. So she started teaching me that, and it was just such wonderful songs. And one of the revolutionaries who was a friend of her father was a Muslim, Qazi Nazrul Islam. He has written wonderful songs on Sri Krishna, and I have sung them in America. Such imagery of Sri Krishna going there, and how the cows would look back and how the flute would come. Extraordinarily beautiful songs with his own tunes. Qazi, they call it Nazrul, is that Giti, Nazrul Giti. That is Nazrul music, Nazrul songs. They are brought telecast also there now. And she taught me 3 of those wonderful songs. One was about Radha wandering through Vrindavan, but this one, Krishna going into the woods. How Sri Krishna goes into the woods, and on the way what happens, and how do the cows respond, how do the gopis respond. Such a graphic imagery and such a beautiful tune. Yes. And so rhythmic also, because it's made for dancing. One could dance to that tune also. So she taught me those songs. Then she taught me some selected songs of Rabindra Sangeet with a beautiful meaning, inward meaning, not those other things. And some songs for the seasons she has written, for rain, and for different seasons he has written very beautiful songs. But the one that he wrote on the rain has got double meaning. One meaning the outdoor showers, and then the other shower is what inwardly comes, because he was a mystic. Mother had described him as a Gandharva. No, these Gandharvas are denizens of the world close to this earth, but they are all musical. They sing. One who sings beautifully is thought he's like a Gandharva. So he was a Gandharva. That is what Mother had said. And so I selected songs of those. So according to the time I had it.
So now you're in Michigan.
Well, I'm going back and forth. If I
okay.
do only the first tour, then we went here, where we went there, and so on, the highlights may not be there, because
Yes, surely.
I was just going led here and there. But of course, when we went to Los Angeles, naturally, my reunion with Jyoti Priya. But Jyoti Priya used to come and go, so we used to see her very often here in the ashram itself. She welcomed us with great love, I can never forget that. I was very happy to be with her. So she's so pure and really a wonderful person. I enjoyed that. And she expressed her love for me quite publicly in the notice board that she put on that East West Gully. She said this, and in the evening what I was to sing, she said music by our beloved Vasanti. She had put on the notice board, would put in official notice that they don't, I was so moved. And one afternoon she sat with me. That was the last visit when we were with her. I didn't rest. I needed rest badly. She also needed. But she took out an album. She showed me from her story from her childhood to the present day. She lived in a community like ours, a beautiful community. And all from the pictures, I could see that it was really so. It was a breakaway group from the Theosophical Society, Point Loma or something like that.
Point Loma, yes.
And she said that is why when I went to the ashram, I felt so much at home there, she said. It was just like being in my childhood again. She felt so much at home. I could see the similarity. She had done great work, really. I knew that. Then San Francisco with Beena Chaudhary, Haridas Chaudhary had passed away. So Beena Chaudhary gave us a great welcome. She told Madhav, after his passing now, there's no one to support us. So you you people must come from the ashram now and help us to run this and all that, she said. So that way we had a wonderful time. But in one place, did you know Joe and Muriel
Yes.
Spaniards, lovely people. I'm skipping our visit to Matagiri, but that, of course, to accept that we had a wonderful welcome and so on, no highlights like that. We did receive a love from them, and some things can be filled in afterwards also. But then Joe and Muriel Spanier had established themselves in Boulder. And they also received us in their home, and they arranged some public meetings and some other things. But they told us that there was a Muktananda center there. There was a disciple of the original Nityananda in Vajreshwari, not Muktananda's, but another Rudranand or someone, an American disciple of Nityanand of Vajreshwari, had started a center there in Siddha Yoga Center in Boulder. They, of course, were very enthusiastic about having Madhav there, and because they had heard also, because Madhav had spoken of it to others, and when Nityanand, their guru Nityanand was a young boy in his early teens, he was in my birthplace. I was not born, but my mother was young. And there are so many stories about him. About these saints I have not spoken, but in some future recordings I may speak of them, because they have all gone to combine and finally bring us to the peak of here, you see. Yeah. So they received us, but they told us, before they told us, Madhusudan Reddy had told us he had already visited the United States several times, speaking at universities and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And he had visited that Buddhist center, Naropa Institute. Naropa Institute of Tibetan culture, Tibetan studies. They, it seems, are very exclusive, and they don't invite anyone easily, only those with proper credentials and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been told. Then Madhav had said, don't try for any invitation for me. It's enough if we attend to the invitations that we have got, you see. We don't have to go get more invitations. So he had kept quiet like that. And but when we arrived in Boulder, the invitation from Naropa Institute was already there, with the Joe and Muriel Spanier, that heard of Madhav, they had also seen his books. They had invited him.
Rather unusual.
Very unusual. Tibetan studies, and they believe in Shunyavada, that is the nihil and all that, and nothing, no connection with them. But they knew of Dr. Madhusudan Reddy had spoken there.
Wow.
But none of our friends had tried, and even these Spaniards had not tried, because why should they try? And they had enough of other centers. They had their own center, they had their the invitation was waiting. So we went there. When we went there, of course there was no singing or anything like that. It was straight talk. Madhav was asked to give a talk on the subject, and he gave, naturally without mentioning Sri Aurobindo, he gave this philosophy that we follow and the practices that we give, the path, the philosophy and the practice in his own words. And they gave him very respectful attention, and he was introduced by the chief of that institute as the greatest authority on Indian Tantra. Madhav never claimed all these titles, but he heard himself described in this manner. And after the talk was over, public talk was over, and the other people dispersed, they still kept him there with them. Those were close, and they were around him, asking him very, very frank questions, which he was to answer. Yes. They closeted themselves with him, and they continued. But they were very respectful, Madhav said, very respectful. Because Madhav told them, this Shunyavada and all that, they also are part of our path, because we explore everything in our path, integral yoga, Shunyavada, but it is a stage that we pass through. There are so many positions or statuses of the divine. There is also a nihil, a niya, as they say, you see. In Indian philosophy, there is the place for a nothing. The unknown sat with the unknown. One in Rigveda verses like that. And the water. So everything is included in that. The only thing is that we feel that there is something beyond that also. Yeah, but this is not the end. That's what we believe. But we respect your position. They also felt that they respected his position and parted amicably. So this was a highlight of his this thing. Then later we saw a young man there who was filming it and all that. And then he told Madhav that he had also spoken of him to them. It seems he had been to the ashram. And Madhav was kind to him and had taken him to Mother. And that young man had not forgotten that experience of meeting Mother. So when he heard that Madhav was to come to Boulder and all that, he also spoke to them of him. But he was just a student or there. He didn't have any position or authority to recommend anyone. But he only let them know that he had known him and he was very impressed by him. And then afterwards he spent some time with us. He showed us some films he has taken, documentary films, of the Native Americans' practices, and I was surprised to find certain similarities in their mudras, what I call mudras and positions and all that. Like saluting the directions, we have that Dikpalakas, we feel each direction has got, and they were actually doing those palm and other movements, foot and palm movements and the head movements. That documentary he had taken and he showed us all privately. And I remember that I was very impressed by the similarities. Even otherwise, what I have not mentioned before, when our plane was hovering over the land of America, you see, between New York and Philadelphia, going back and forth, I looked below at the land, American land, So, strangely enough, I found in the cities the lights were there, that was different. I could feel some vibrations coming from the land. Some holy, sacred vibrations coming up. The land, it was there, embedded in the land. In the land it was there. What aspect was America presented to the modern world, I didn't know. What modern America was, I didn't know. But the land itself, the earth of America, it was sacred.
This is what I feel.
The earth of America is sacred.
Exactly.
And I found those vibrations because I'm sure these entities felt. Some entities are there, it is a living thing. Then they recognize the others coming and going to have interaction with them. The interchange, those vibrations came like that, came up like that to me in the plane. And I said, the land here is sacred.
Yes.
It's sacred. And when we were traveling by van, and we went so many miles, I think 1,700 miles, I think, something like that we traveled. There were, as our van passed through certain areas, I could again feel like some pools of light in some places. And I am sure that some spiritual people had practiced there or lived there. And in some places there were still hutments and still some structures and people were still there practicing those things, the Native American things. And in some places, nothing was there. It was open land, but the that sacredness was there. I could feel that it was a special place. The magnetism of spirituality was there. So I must say that I wasn't fooled by or disturbed by any of the things that I saw outwardly in the social structure or other structure like that. I could feel the land, and then, we recognize our kind, There is a certain recognition. My mother's guru used to say, if there is a clothes line, she was a village woman, so simple like that. In the clothes line, you tie one side and the other side, and so many clothes are hanging there. If you pull that clothes line, then all those other clothes, they will start moving. You see, shaking, isn't that so? So it's like that. At one point, you start shaking, and all the others begin to vibrate. So I found very spiritual people also in America, in Crotona or the hill. That they were theosophists, but they were so tolerant, they were so wide, and they had light on their faces. When they retired to that hill. So they had practiced all their lives. And some were really truly spiritual. I was very impressed by them. One of them, Madhav, saw that man was just walking. He was, of course, wearing a suit like anything, and normal suit, nothing very extraordinary, simple suit. He was an old man, maybe in his 70s or maybe older than that. He was quietly walking over the paths of that hill, and when I saw him, I could see that there was light there on his face, and he was what you call pakwa, that is, the one who has ripened. Yes. When he saw Madhav, he stopped, and he looked at him. Madhav looked at him too, and I could see that Madhav also was impressed. They didn't know each other. And so they looked at each other. And then Madhav did a strange thing. Of course, he was much older than Madhav, and Indians do bow down to the elders. And Madhav just bowed down a little from a distance there, and that man, raised his palm like that, in that gesture of blessing, quietly. Not a word was exchanged. Then he went on his way. Later, I came to know who he was. He was quite an important man in the Theosophical Society. He had worked hard for it all his life. He had practiced a lot. And now he was so mellow, so ripe. All that had gone into his system. And we could feel it, you see. The denomination doesn't matter, The spirit is everywhere. I was very impressed by this man on the hill.
Yeah.
In Ojai, California.
In Ojai.
Yes. In Ojai.
That was Krishnamurti's place.
This was the original theosophical place. Krishnamurti's place, Krishnamurti Foundation was on another place. But there also we went.
Oh.
Because Krishnamurti himself was speaking. So Tat Sat bought some tickets. You had to buy, I think, $3 or something like that. And we were in the area, so we went to that place. But after some time, Madhav felt like getting up and going.
Yeah.
Not that he disapproved of anything. I think he felt like coming back. So we came back. But I heard Krishnamurti speaking on a platform in his own main establishment. That is where he lived.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. But then we came back. But we were more comfortable with these old people who had spent all their lives in sadhana. They were like the old sadhaks here. There were some lovely people there. They appreciated Madhav a lot. They had not asked before any non-theosophical person to speak in their courses. He was asked to give a small course there. The course was in the second visit. The first time they received us for We stayed there for just 3 days, but they liked Madhav so much. They said, if you come here again, then you have to give us a course for 3 months.
Was this in Point Loma?
No, in Ojai.
Oh,
Point
this was in
Loma.
Ojai.
Point Loma had folded long before, and the Judith Tyberg had to come. We never went to Point Loma. We thought we learned of Point Loma only from Judith,
From her, yeah.
from Jyoti Priya.
She grew up there.
Yes,
Yes.
her parents were there.
Yeah.
But Point Loma was not there when we. But afterwards, it seems they tried to bring something together and all that. That's mentioned in Mandakini's life sketch of Jyoti Priya. Yes.
Yeah.
But for a time it had something had subsided. Then they again had to revive it and all that. But by that time, Jyoti Priya had moved to Los Angeles. But here, Crotona was the place. It is a hillock, and there when the Osophists first came, they felt certain spiritual vibrations there. So they decided to have an institute there. And that is how Krishnamurti went there. But when they parted from the Theosophical Society officially, he established his own center, Krishnamurti Foundation. Yes. I think it is time
Yes,
that we
I think
stop.
so. You've done so beautifully.
Oh, really? You think so?
I think so.
You know, I've lived so long and then literally met some thousands of people. So what happens is I can go on endlessly weaving stories, going back and forth. Chronologically, completely I can do it. Would be a year's first visit or second visit. But I can remember which visit it was. In the first visit also, everywhere we went. Everywhere the special things were not there, you see.
We have to talk next time about this person that you were telling me this morning.
Shirin.
Hirin.
You have definitely seen her because she used to live at Golconda in the beginning. Parsi.
Parsi. Good.
Namaste.